And here especially I want to focus on the MRI of the liver and present a new network architecture and its clinical evaluation. So hepatobiliary contrast agents facilitate the visualization and characterization of focal liver lesions in MRI. Here especially gadoxetate disodium, which is also known under the name of Primovis or Eovis, is frequently used because of its high diagnostic value. MRI images in general are subject to a number of artifacts and noise sources. Because of the long acquisition times, dynamic MRI examinations suffer from motion artifacts. Recent research, however, showed that especially the IV bolus injection of gadoxetate disodium or other contrast media as well are accompanied by notable image degradation in the arterial phase due to respiratory motion-related artifacts. This respiratory motion makes a specific pattern of noise, so the artifact is caused by a corrupted phase in the K-space datasets. Removing this coherent noise is still challenging using conventional filters. This phenomenon of a respiratory artifact is temporary and self-limited, wherefore also the term of transient severe motion or TSM is often used. It's believed to be caused by an acute transient dyspnea in the patient, however, the underlying pathomechanism is not yet solved. It has been shown that in gadoxetate disodium it reaches incidences of about 11 to 22%, and with that, those artifacts are significantly higher with this contrast media compared to others like gadomenide dimeglumine, for instance. These TSM artifacts, as you can imagine, are of high clinical significance, as the arterial phase is of course essential for the lesion characterization. This image degradation leads to reduction in diagnostic accuracy. So what we want is an artifact reduction during the image acquisition or afterwards. This has to be a major aim in the clinical setting. As you can imagine, there are several approaches to solve this problem. So on the one hand, you can go patient-based, meaning that you inform the patient, for instance, about this phenomenon, or you can do breath hold practice beforehand, or you can also dilute the contrast agent, making the concentration much less. On the other hand, you can also tackle the image acquisition, so you can make fast scanning techniques like compress sensing. Here you make use of the sparsity of signals, so the K-space undersampling leads to a shorter acquisition time. You can make respiratory triggering, so the sequence acquisition is based on respiratory tracings or navigator ergors. The problem here is a bit that it is quite difficult to time the arterial phase images because of the long scanning time. You can also make single breath hold multi-arterial phase acquisition, so the patient just has one single breath during the acquisition. The problem with all these strategies is that they are time-consuming and they disrupt the clinical workflow. So it would be quite nice if you can make better images after the image acquisition, so kind of a post-processing algorithm. And here deep learning methods offer excellent denoising performance. As you can imagine, those post-processing strategies allow for standardized protocols and no change in the sequence acquisition, making it more smoothly the workflow. My predecessor already talked about the deep learning, so just let me sum up. Deep learning is based on neural network with a high number of hidden layers. Here we have also the feed-forward technique of convolutional neural network, or CNN, which has greatly improved the performance on various vision tasks, also on the medical imaging practices such as denoising, segmentation, super resolution. CNN employs trainable filters and convolution segmentation operations between the input and output filters, so therefore it reduces the amount of parameters necessary to be learned compared to classic multi-layer perception methods. What we did now was that we developed a multi-channel convolutional neural network, and we called it MARC, so Motion Artifact Reduction for Convolutional Neural Network. It was quite a catchy term, all right? So the network here looks like that, yeah? So it extracts the artifact's components from the input images and was developed on such a CNN consisting of 7 layers. Each layer has two-dimensional convolutions, batch normalizations, and rectified linear units. It was trained on 14,190 cropped images, which were generated from model abdominal MR images. The simulation of the motion artifacts was undertaken by adding periodic case-based domain noise to the images. So the noisy images, as you can say that, were generated by adding phase error to the reference images. The cropped images then, with and without the motion artifacts, were used for the input and the output of the network. Afterwards, two independent radiologists saw the original and the filtered images in the pre-contrast and dynamic arterial phases in 192 patients. And they evaluated it regarding the occurrence of motion artifacts. And they rated the diagnostic accuracy on a 4-point scale. So you can see here with the image that we have a motion score 1 with no motion artifacts, motion score 2 with minor artifacts, but still a good diagnostic quality. Motion score 3 would be distinct artifacts, which impeded diagnostic accuracy, and motion score 4 with severe artifacts and non-diagnostic quality. Additionally, the lesion conspicuity was also evaluated by comparing the original and the artifact-reduced images for selected lesions. So especially we had a look at, are lesions still discernible on both images, or have we loss of anatomical information after the filter, which is a quite often occurring phenomenon of those filters. Or do we even have additional information after the filter application? And this was also evaluated on a 5-point scale. So what we found was that of the roughly 1,344 original image datasets, no artifacts were detected in 39.9% and minor artifacts in 44.4%, etc. So in the image sets of the arterial phases only, substantial artifacts were present in 18.9%. And the newly developed filter significantly improved image quality over all phases, showing an average motion artifact score of 2.53 compared to 1.97 in the original MR images. So, apart from that, we also saw that a significant reduction in TSM artifacts was also achieved for the native and arterial phases separately, which you can see here in this diagram. So you can see the original and the artifact-reduced images for the pre-contrast and the special each phases of the 6 phases which were assessed for the different motion scores. And these pictures are quite catchy, I think. So the post-processing led to a decrease in motion scores from 2 to 1 in roughly 30%, from 3 to 2 in 72% roughly, and from 4 to 3 in roughly 63%. This is quite catchy, actually. And another thing which I want to show you here is that after the filter application, all reference lesions were still discernible. And if you make a side-by-side comparison of the lesion conspicuity in the original and the artifact-reduced images, we see that the lesions were more conspicuous after MARC application. So you can see before filter, after filter, the hepatocellular carcinoma, which you can see here in this lobe, it's much better discernible because the artifacts were reduced. And you can see another example for an AP shunt, which is also much better discernible after the filter application. And if we ask the two radiologists, they both rated the artifact-reduced images better or equal compared to the originals in most cases. And you can see also last example of a cystic lesion, which is here in this lobe. After filter, much better discernible. You can have a artifact, motion artifact score of 2 to 3 maybe. So let me conclude. TSM artifacts in general are of high clinical significance, as the arterial phase is essential for the lesion characterization. Recently, it has been shown that debloating approaches offer excellent denoising performance, and the method offers a new perspective in artifact-reduced high-quality MRI. Especially here, CNN-based filter and the one which we developed, the MARC, showed a significant reduction in image degradation caused by those respiratory artifacts in gadoxetate disodium enhanced liver MRI. So this method really can be of high clinical value, as it leads to an improvement in image quality and diagnostic accuracy, especially in those subjects with failing breath hold in the scan. And with that, I want to conclude, and I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I wish you a pleasant day.